Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello. Welcome back. Chase Thomas podcast, taping this on a Wednesday night with the percentage man himself, Volquest own Austin Price. Austin, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I hope you were practicing before. Do you think about that before you jump on any interview about Tennessee football where they're going to ask me about a percentage on a recruit? I know they're going to do it.
No, I don't really. I mean, not many people ask me outside the general's quarters. I mean, a lot of times I just have fun with that. So, like, they were asking me on the Monday night chat, like, about, like, Keenan Peely, Brew McCoy, and Cooper Mays. And so, it's like 98.5, 78.7, and 53%, right? Like, I mean,
Do any players look at it? Have you ever gotten a note from one of the guys, like you go back in to cover him, they're like, I saw that you saw that I'm 70% coming back next year. Okay. No. You think I'm 70% there?
No, I've never seen anybody talk to me about percentages. I've never, of course, I don't do the prediction stuff as far as crystal balls and that type of thing. So, like, I've never had anybody talk to me about that stuff either. I mean, I've had people, complain to me about others who do it, but, no, I've not had anybody talk to me about what percentages.
Well, I got to give a shout out to Rob because I almost spit out my water when I'm like going through the Monday night chat on my phone as my wife and I are sitting there in the living room, and his comment about Jalen McCullough, like whoever replaces Jalen McCullough is just gonna have high stamina, like was one of the funnier things I've seen on the general's quarters in the Monday night chat in a long time. Like it really cracked me up. It just completely caught me off guard. It was a great job by Rob.
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, you got the Rob patented laugh that, you don't really hear unless you know Rob. It's just like a machine gun. It's like, it's like almost like a Roscoe P. Coltrane. So, I mean, like it's, he'll pop one off in the press box at Neyland and, I'm over there in stitches. So, he's good at the quick wit and the, out of nowhere.
That's the best kind, though. The kind that catches you off the guard is the best kind. And that's why we like it. Well, I appreciate you doing this, Austin. And I have a question to start things off here. The biggest difference between the Vols at the beginning of the season versus how they finished was what for you? What did you see that was different when you think about Virginia to Vanderbilt?
The back part of the year, they just struggled to get home with the defensive line. Early in the year, they were, getting home. I thought it made the secondary better. And then late in the year, like, there were a lot of those holds that, weren't called holds, and Tennessee failed to get home as much, and I thought that was just noticeable.
Did you notice something that they were doing? Was it James Pierce was just getting doubled and chipped more? Was it just the scheme and not sending more? Because it seemed like this year, as opposed to previous years, I mean, maybe it was just the Banks factor. It's just Banks was blitzing so much on the edge, and Banks was, I think, really missed, especially as the season went on, his style of linebacker play versus what they had this year. Maybe not necessarily in coverage, but in terms of just like sending more than four, it seemed like they did not do that nearly as much as they did a year ago.
Teams, they did not blitz near as much. I agree with that. Teams, they got the ball out of their hands. So, like, even when Tennessee was able to get back there, I mean, teams were, the quarterbacks were getting it out of their hands really quick, and they weren't, there was no 5 and 7 step drops. It was, get it out of your hand as quick as possible. And, I mean, Georgia is a little bit of a different animal. Their offensive line a little better than the others, but the Missouris, Kentuckys, those type teams, I think it was just getting the ball out.
Were you surprised Tyree West didn't become more of a factor as the season went on?
I mean, I guess. I mean, he's a good solid player, but I mean, I think this spring will be big for him because he's got to take a little bit of a jump here. Heading into his third year under Rodney Garner.
I'm interested in him. I'm interested in Josephs, who had a great day on Saturday against Vanderbilt. And you're like, well, that's the plan. It never is that seamless where you're like, oh, we have the two edges in that same class, Joshua Josephs, James Pierce, and we're good to go. We've got that locked up for the next couple of years. But I don't know. Are you convinced that those are the two guys and that Garner can count on the two of them over the next 2 years?
Well, I mean, he basically counted on them a lot this year. I mean, Roman Harrison, I mean, he started and played, but I mean, really at the end of the day, he was depending on 27 a lot. And then at the back part of the year, it was, Josh Joseph. So, I think that you look at those two; those are the two you'll lean on next year. We'll see how Caleb Herring continues to come along,
Mm.
and then I would go Jordan Ross.
Jordan Ross, I mean, I guess Chandavian Bradley is really far away, right? Like, would you expect him to even be a role guy next year?
And we'll see if he's even at defensive end next year.
Oh, what could he be if he's not a defensive end?
You can move him around. He can be a tight end.
Oh,
No, we'll see. I think that that's one that he's got to buy into the football side of things a little bit more. He's having a little too much fun. Waving the towel on Saturdays on the sidelines, and they need him to, I think take a step this spring.
interesting. Would you be a towel waiver if you were on the college football team? Would you be a towel waiver? What kind of on the off field role would you have?
Well, I would never be in that position, but
if you were,
I don't think I would. I think I would be a towel waiver if it was 4th down and the game was on the line. But just trying to get the crowd hyped up all the time.
No. Have you been to like way back in the day when you were a student? Were you loud? Were you a yeller at games, or were you kind of just watching and not getting involved?
I'm quiet. I'm very
same here. Same here. I'm quiet too. I like I brood when things are going well, and I'm just seeing how I don't know. I'm the same way.
I'm quiet when I watch any games.
Really?
I see my daughter's games. Those are different. I'm going to dad mode, and but
are you going to war with other parents, or is there some back and forth sometimes with Austin Bryce?
No. I'm not one of those crazy parents. Like no.
Yeah.
I'm just like I'm encouraging that type of thing. I'm loud encouraging.
Yeah.
When my kids are in activities, whereas I don't really engage at all. I'm at a sporting event otherwise.
I like it. Where were you right and where were you wrong about this team before the year, Austin?
Well, I was right that they would take a step back offensively and that they would take a step forward defensively, at least the first part of the year. Then they started to kind of go back the other direction. But I did not think they would be as good offensively. I thought they would hit more big plays. I was wrong on that. Like I thought they could take a step back as far as points and yards and that type of stuff. But I mean, if you'd have told me that their big plays would be extremely limited, I would have told you you're crazy. But they kind of just felt more comfortable with a lot of the short stuff early, and they got a little better as the season went along, Chase. But on the whole, it was a lot of side to side passing.
It was 88 passes behind the line of scrimmage or to the side this year.
Yeah.
That's insane. It was one of those eye-popping numbers where you look at it compared to any other year, and there's just no way around it. Like, I wonder going into next year if like Heupel will open up more, like once he can completely close the book on what happened this year and how things were. I wonder if do you think he opens up more on like why he had to do that and after Joe's gone, this, that, and the other, or do you not think so?
No, I don't think so. I think he just will roll on, and I think he would tell you he's won with different style of quarterbacks, different style of offenses, big backs, small backs. Big arm quarterbacks, or quarterbacks that are more game managers. I don't think he's ever going to get too deep in the weeds on anything specifically on offense.
Do you think he had I imagine at this point, Heupel pretty well, but it seemed like he was pretty over this year. It was like one of those, I'm ready to close the book. I'm ready to get on to next year. Do you sense that?
Yes and no. I think he was frustrated. I think he was frustrated at how they played in a couple of games. I think he'd love to go back to games and we'll do that one again, but you can't. Otherwise, you lost to 3 top 10 teams. If you just win that Florida game and you're 9-3, you lost to 3 top 10 teams, and is anybody really blinking? That Florida game's the one that just sticks out like a sore thumb. So, I wouldn't say he was over the year, but I think he was frustrated with certain factors of the year.
I think I was just surprised, not that they lost to Georgia, but just the way they lost to Georgia surprised me. I mean, they had a better showing 2 years ago at home with a much more depleted roster. Obviously, Hendon was in at that point, but I mean, there was just no life on offense for the entirety of that game. It was just something I did not anticipate. I thought they, even with the injuries,
first play, no, there wasn't.
yeah, I mean, none. Like, it was one of those, you're in the middle of the third, and I'm looking at my wife, we're in the States, and I'm like, the sun's going down, it's getting cold. And she's like, are you sure you don't think they're going to? I'm like, we got to go. Like, this is continuing on. This is not changing the rest of this game. Let's not freeze to death over this. But I don't know. It was just kind of, I've never seen them more helpless on offense. And especially, it was just weird with a Heupel coach team to just see them struggle that much offensively from the beginning to the end to a Georgia defense that hasn't been as dominant and hasn't been as good as they were the last 2 years. I don't know. I just not surprised they lost. I was very surprised at how limited they were offensively to find anything after that first play.
Yeah, but I mean, when you think about it, I mean, offensive line, you're beat up. You're playing some backups. Running backs are fine. Wide receivers, you weren't really dynamic this year. They were limited in with the passing game at the quarterback spot, in my opinion, and so I mean, like, they just weren't very dynamic. So I mean, they've got to find a way to be more dynamic in 2024. With Nico, better receivers, better offensive linemen.
What was the biggest leap from any position group this year? Which one do you think made the biggest leap in this group?
It's a tough one. I would still probably say, I would say running backs, because I think feel like you're really deep there for this year's team. I would also throw in their defensive line. On the whole, they played really well most of the year. And, they didn't get home as much there at the end of the year, but I think, there were some factors that, kind of forced that.
What is the fairest complaint / worry from the general's quarters right now that you'd be like, look, they're at it a lot, but I actually do think this is fair?
You're better off just to ask me 2 or 3 of the. I mean, there's so many. there's so many things that's on the general's quarters that I don't agree with. But then probably some of them I do that are fair. I think a fair assessment is, there was the joke in the Monday night chat was, I'm not going to ask you, who's not going to be back. I'm just going to ask you what quality control coach is going to be a position coach next year. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Is to this point, Hype's only promoted guys, and I think that's a fair, question, or a concern, that he's not went outside and made the big splash hire. But I mean, I'm not sure Josh Heupel is a big splash hire guy. Like, I'm not, I don't think he's one that's like, ooh, let's go get that guy because the fans wanted me to.
Yeah.
I just don't. I think he's more about camaraderie, about fit, about all that stuff. And I'm not saying you got to promote, because I don't think that's fair either, or right either. I think you've got to, find a fit outside the family. You don't want to fall into that trap that Dabo fell into, which is where he just kept promoting guys and promoting guys. And, not every guy, just because he's in your program, is ready to be an assistant coach. And so, we'll see, like, the next opening he has, does he go down that kind of routine again? Like, on the defensive side of the ball, I would be shocked if he just promoted, at least at a couple of different positions. At running back, I don't think he'll promote there, so, if Jerry Mack were to leave.
And that was an outside guy, because they didn't really have a connection prior, did they?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. Did not have, any kind of connection before he got here, but those two, have jobbed really well since they started working together.
So you wouldn't look into Corey, I think it's Corey Robinson, the hire last offseason, as a potential replacement at DB's coach, if there was one?
Yeah, well, one, I don't think there's going to be one. And two, I'm not, does Corey Robinson want to stay in the college game? I think he's here because he needs the job, but I mean, I think he liked the NFL life, like most people do. I mean, it's a different life.
So you think, not to put you on the spot, but so you think Willie's back next year?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Sorry, General's quarters. That's what. Sorry on that one, because that was like, it's just then. Is it not weird to not do the contract stuff and kind of leave it open up until February and kind of just not do the extension and just kind of drag this out? Is that not kind of strange because you have all these questions looming all year?
I don't think like I don't think that this is something where they're going to wait around till February and then renew him. Like
Okay.
I think that that's something that would probably happen late December, early January. You know, in my opinion, I think there's a fairly strong chance that Willie Martinez is Tennessee's defensive backs coach next year.
Okay. Let's do some recruiting stuff here, Austin. Jordan Seaton right now. When do you think he's going to announce, and where do you think Tennessee currently sits with him?
I would venture to say he'll do something on the 20th on signing day. I think it's Tennessee or Oregon. Ohio State is the X factor team if he does make it back to Columbus or makes it to Columbus in the next week or two. The other thing is, like, does he make it back to Oregon? Because that was also there was some chatter about that. You know, if he makes it back to Oregon, I think that's bad for Tennessee. Like, I think if he goes to Ohio State, I don't think that necessarily. I mean, I think it could move the needle, but I don't think it spells doom for the Balls automatically. Whereas I think he goes back to Oregon. That's could be a telltale sign in kind of how this thing's going to play out. But I think it's those two at the top.
Could they get him back if he goes to Oregon? Could they get him back for another OV or no?
Well, he couldn't take an OV, but he could come back unofficially.
Okay. So if he went to Oregon one more time, would that be unofficially too?
Yeah, I don't know if he went unofficially or on an OV the first time around.
Okay. What do you? Because they're very different offenses. Do you think that's weighing on him too? Because it's like you said, there's so many other layers and there's so many other reasons as to why kids pick where they pick. But what about Tennessee will give the Vols the best shot of landing Seaton? Because those are two very different tempo based and just different styles, different sides of the country. Like what gives Tennessee the advantage potentially against Oregon?
Quick path to the field. I think that's quick path to the field. Playing in the SEC, NIL. I mean, all those things. Not in Oregon can compete with Tennessee in NIL.
Right.
That's more of a wash, I think. But quick path to the field, playing in the SEC.
Do you think he has a relationship at all with Nico or no?
Yeah, those two have talked.
Okay.
I wouldn't call them like best buddies or anything, but
What about Roger? And I'm still not confident in his last name. Saleapaga. It seems like he's developed a stronger relationship with Nico based on y'all's reporting.
Well, they grew up.
Okay.
Playing Little League ball in Long Beach. Nico, Madden, and Roger. If you hear Roger tell that's been back when Madden was a linebacker. We'll see. He's committing on Friday.
So that's for sure. He's committed on Friday.
Yeah, we're taping this on a Wednesday night. I'd say in the next 24 hours, I'd be shocked if some things didn't start to leak out one way or the other. It's Tennessee or Oregon, another Tennessee-Oregon battle.
Who do you feel more confident in winning the Tennessee-Oregon battle for between Seaton and Roger?
I mean, he had a really good time here. I think his parents prefer Knoxville. That doesn't mean that he'll end up here, though. Like if you held a gun to my head, I'd still lean Oregon by fractions.
I'm not going to do that. It's the holiday season. I'm not putting a gun to Austin's head to get some recruiting info. It's a much more conversational, laid back show, Austin.
I know, but I mean, like everybody try because I like to drop Easter eggs so much. Like when I'm not trying to drop an Easter egg, I have to be deliberate about it. Right? Like I was doing Swain show on Wednesday, and I was like, I'm not saying I know anything here. This is not what I'm doing. Like, because Swain's like, and I'm like, I'm not. This is not an Easter egg. This is I'm just talking in generalities.
So, Easter egg or not Easter egg, who do you feel more confident in, Roger or Seaton for Tennessee fans?
It's crazy as it sounds to say. I would tell you Jordan Seaton. But I would say neither.
I think most Tennessee fans would be excited. Like, it's not great that the tight end stuff is recruiting there, but like Seaton, I just feel like is a much bigger ad because I mean he's the biggest ad.
He's a top 10 player nationally across the board, and so how do you not get excited? He would be the Nico of this class.
Mm. That's interesting. Okay, I feel better. I like Roger, but I mean, tight ends, I don't know. Like, we'll see on that front. Cai Bates, is that ship sailed or no?
Yes, in my opinion, I think Florida State will be the pick.
What does that mean for the portal for Tennessee at corner?
I don't know if it means anything. I mean, Tennessee's got a lot of young corners. Like I keep just if you can get a dude like a guy that's going to be an instant impact in the portal, right? Like a guy who's all conference, then yeah, sure, you take a kid at any position. If you do that doesn't matter where you're at. You take a kid at any position. But like just taking a body to take a body, like Tennessee's got too many young DBs to be taking players out of the portal, in my opinion.
Were you surprised that Elias Williams ultimately? It's not that he didn't pick Tennessee, but he didn't pick Tennessee or Alabama when it was all said and done.
I mean, Missouri picked a good time to be relevant, and they kind of rode that wave with a few recruits, and him being one of them.
It seemed like that was the main target. Like Morris Williams obviously did not come to fruition either. But when you look at that spot, did that one that kind of caught Tennessee off guard, or that kind of hurts a little bit more, or maybe changes how they approach Omar Norman Lawton and Mari Thomas now to return?
And Morris Williams, I mean, he's going to visit here next weekend.
So that one's not dead potentially.
No, I don't think he'll end up at Florida. I think probably Ohio State. They lost Justin Scott to Miami on Wednesday. And those are two different positions too. Morris Williams is a smaller guy. Like he's not nearly as big as Elias Williams is. But we'll see on that one. I think he's down. Tennessee would probably rather have the JUCO kids at this point, in my opinion.
So you think they get one of the main three who were just there?
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, JUCO kids are if you're going to ask me, I'd take Kamari Copeland probably the most likely.
Is Byron Young involved in that at all? Do they go and like look at what we did here? Like, hey, can you tell why this was such a great fit for you? Stuff like that. Do they do that in recruiting at all?
They do, but I mean, with him, in the middle of his NFL season,
yeah,
he's super involved in it.
Who's the biggest thing they call a lot over the last couple of years? Who Heupel's called who's helped Tennessee recruiting that might surprise some fans?
Heupel, I mean, I don't know if there's anybody that Heupel is called. I mean, Rodney will use some of his guys that he's coached, at other stops to kind of, pitch, what he pitches. And, Peyton's helped out from time to time and, those type of things. But I don't think Hype's really, I don't think Hype's big into the whole, like, hey, let's call, this guy from 20 years ago. Because most kids are like, who is this person?
Yeah. It feels like Kamara's been back a lot though lately. Feels like he's been
what happens when you're suspended, and then later in the year you have a bye week. So thus he was here for 3 games.
Yeah, he was here a lot. It was funny. It's crazy. I don't know if you saw him around one weekend, but I was out with my wife on like Sunday afternoon, and Kamara is just walking by with his wife, I think. But it was just on Gay Street, and I like had to do a double take because it was just like, is that Alvin? And they were like, what? And I'm like, that's Alvin Kamara. I don't know why Alvin's here. It's the middle of the NFL year. And then you're like, oh, right, he's suspended. So he's just hanging out. He's living his life. But it was just funny. Alvin Kamara just walking by. Tennessee fans didn't notice. He's just out in the elements.
Yeah, I mean, Alvin, again, suspended for a couple of weeks and then has the bye week. But I think it's good for Tennessee that he wants to be back around.
Yes.
Because he still is a name, right? Like
he's on the outside building. He's on the building.
Correct. But, I mean, he's still a name in the league.
Yeah.
Like Eric Berry, some kids know who he is, but some don't. I mean, like he didn't play that long ago. I mean, like kids are such a here and now, right? Like, a year from now that kids will be saying that, the GOAT is, Marvin Harrison Jr. Like he was a fabulous player, but I mean, like,
yeah.
Ask recruits who Art Monk is, I don't know.
No, I don't think so. Next recruit announcement will be a 2024 kid or a 2025 kid, Austin?
Picking the balls?
Mm-hmm.
If it's Roger, it'll be a 2024.
Mm-hmm. But if it's not Roger,
I would still say 2024.
Okay. Last thing here, and we'll wrap up tonight, Austin. I was talking to Rusty Manziel, who's awesome, doing great stuff over at Dogs HQ last week, or I guess it was 2 weeks ago before the Georgia game. And he was talking about Mike Matthews. We both went to Parkview, and really, really, obviously big recruit in this class, 5-star receiver. But he was talking about like finding a way to get him on the field, and that was a big win for Tennessee. Obviously, he's been recruited. He recruited so long ago. He's coming in early, I believe. He'll be an early guy. Tennessee obviously thin at wide receiver.
Yeah.
You like what you've seen from Chaz Nimrod, especially. I think Chaz has really come on late for Tennessee and looks like he could be a factor going into next year. Still kind of shaky on Webb to this point as one of your go-to 3 starters. But is there a chance that Heupel breaks it? Like, we didn't see Nathan Leacock at all this year as a true freshman. Do you think Mike Matthews, similar to Jordan Seaton, where he comes in as a 5-star tackle, like, hey, there's a path to the playing field, you're looking at starting right away. Do you think there is a path to Mike Matthews actually being a factor and starting? He's that good and that talented that he will be going in next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it will depend on how he does in spring, right? Like, I mean, he goes out and plays really well in spring. That kind of puts him on the springboard to fall camp and so on and so forth. So I think it all starts with how he performs between March and April.
Okay, I like it. Austin Price, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at Volquest.com this week?
Just more portal coverage and who's coming, who's going. We'll see if we got some names that Tennessee's going to go after in the portal, and obviously the tight end position will be one to watch, in the portal, and offensive line, and all that good stuff.
There you go. Go subscribe, Volquest.com today. Y'all do y'all still have the holiday special going on right now? Or did that just wrap?
I think it may have just wrapped up.
Just wrapped up. But either way, go subscribe. I subscribe. It's great stuff on Volquest.com. Subscribe today. Austin Price, thank you as always for the time. I greatly appreciate it. Let's do it again soon.
Sounds good, Chase.